The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in a popular and not so popular franchise. And today we are talking about Final Destination from 2000. This is quite a turn, I feel like, from Friday the 13th and Phantasm. It was a little bit of a whiplash, I felt, on this one.
Going back to a slasher movie where the slasher isn't a guy, isn't anything. He's a concept.
Yep.
But it's like back to that kind of a brisker pace.
Sure.
And a clear focus.
Yes. Yeah. Had you seen this one before?
I watched this one. Mm-hmm. This is the only one of the franchise I've seen. I watched it for the first time last year.
Okay.
When it came out, I was of the age that this was targeting at, or on the cusp of it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I was too above that nonsense.
A little erudite.
Now I'm like, this rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen this one. I'm not sure if I've seen all of them in the theater. I know that I saw at least the first 1 to 3, I suppose. To be perfectly honest, when I saw them the first times when they came out, I was just like, that was fine. It didn't really strike me one way or the other. And I'll be interested to see if my opinion has changed when, doing our experiment of watching them back to back to back,
Right.
There's one of the sequels, I can't remember if it's part 2 or part 3, that I watch a little bit more regularly just because of the opening sequence. There's one that does really stand out in my mind, but we'll get there eventually. But rewatching this one this time, I did not remember that much about it because I'm not sure if I've seen it since I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, there was a lot I didn't remember about it.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain little aspects of the deaths that I remembered, but I forgot how protracted some of them were.
Yes, yeah. You touched on it at the end of our Phantasm wrap-up when we were mentioning that this is what we were going to watch, but it's very different when you're kind of there's whole books written about Phantasm. There are many books and many articles written about the early days of making Friday the 13th. This is a studio that spent $23 million on a film and then test screened it to death. Well, maybe not to death. Yeah. That may be a little bit much, but this was a proper studio film. This has none of the the moxie of a low budget horror film. That's a good portion of the reason why I love low budget horror.
Yeah, this didn't get sucked up by the studio machine and either spat back out, changed. I was kind of interesting. The guy who wrote it initially, this James Reddick, wrote a treatment for basically just to be like, hey, I want to get a TV agent. Look at me write this spec script. Mm-hmm. And then James Wong and Glenn Morgan, who had been in Hollywood for a while, they had written James Wong particularly had written on 21 Jump Street, among other things. And then Wong and Morgan had written for X-Files. And they both wrote that episode Home,
yes,
which is one of the famously more disturbing episodes. Mm-hmm. So then they liked it and they took it on and sold it. And it's a bunch of professionals making a movie.
Yeah, I don't need to reduce everything to high school cliches because I am too old to do that. But, whereas Phantasm is seen to be made by the weirdo kids who loved horror, this one feels like it was made by the football team. This is what the jocks do for their horror films. Now, I'm not saying I don't like it because of that, but it's just so much more polished and it's just so much different than what we usually do.
Yeah, it's a horror movie you could buy at the mall. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a dated reference because malls are dying, but right. But it's a more accessible kind of thing. And I think that was a lot of the thrust of that mid 90s teen horror craze. I think trying to make it more accessible to audiences as well.
Sure.
It's to not just be this, try to capture that 1980 slasher stuff without it being as nasty, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So smoothing the edges off some of that.
And
although this has some edges.
It does. And I want to be careful about I want to be careful to catch myself because I don't want to just think that anything that has a high budget is not good.
Yeah.
I want to excise that idea from my brain. But there is a far different feeling in the approach to these. This feels like a a product.
Yeah, and it definitely has like a feel of people that know what they're doing.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I like this movie just fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, I mean, I'm sure you could really go down a philosophical rabbit hole with some of the ideas that this presents. I don't think that the movie does that at all, but I think it's like,
no.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about like all the different movies this could have been by keeping it a ride. Like it's great. It does that very well.
Yeah.
You could make this much more existential thing about trying to defeat death itself, particularly toward as the movie goes on and the main character starts kind of like trying to isolate himself from being dead. Like you could go down a route of just that, of like Todd Haynes' Safe.
Yes.
You know, even that could be kind of silly and whatever. And maybe these movies go down that road more. But I think that it captures the tone of all this stuff pretty well.
Yeah.
And does make it a little bit more like you can see the X-Files background in some of this stuff. Doing this kind of horror stuff, but on a safer footing, I suppose.
So for any of you that do not know what the Final Destination movies are about, it essentially, like with this opening scene, each one of the films in the franchise start off kind of like this. So we've got a group of teenagers, I think they're all like 17 or something, lining up to the airport. They're on their way to a class trip to go to Paris. Our main character, Alex, he just has a premonition on the plane that the plane is going to explode upon takeoff. And he flips out, tries to get everybody off the plane. A lot of his friends are mad at him for like, getting him off the plane on their way to Paris. And he looks outside and the plane explodes as it takes off from the tarmac. I feel like a lot of the protracted like looks and everything before they get on the plane is a little annoying, although you kind of start to come to like, oh, that's the gimmick of this film. So you have to get into that ride. But I think that traveling on planes, especially these days, is very stressful and everybody recognizes it as being very stressful. Yeah. So I found this whole opening sequence actually very effective, where everybody's just sort of annoyed looking around. You're a little claustrophobic. I thought this whole scene was done really well.
Well, it's impressive because, I mean, the movie was initially called Flight 180.
Yeah.
But they changed it because Final Destination sounds cooler.
Yeah.
This movie already, in that first sequence, has done a massive switcheroo. Because if you watch the credits for this movie, isolated from everything else, the credits for this movie are for a movie about an evil fan. The text treatment is names being like split apart. There's constantly these ominous shots of the fan in the lead character's room, and it's blowing open books to like guillotine photos.
Oh, yes.
And like all this stuff. So it's about a haunted evil fan.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they're getting on a plane. I'm like, well, wait, what about this fan?
What happened to the fan?
Now, no, spoiler alert, if this comes up later and it turns out it's been the fan this whole time, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Let me experience that for myself. But there's nothing that says like, there's no inciting incident that like, oh, he was struck by lightning, so now he can predict death. He just has this feeling, and that's it. And I dig that.
Yeah.
I don't need this whole, he's specially chosen, he's part of this ancient race, something. No, he's just a dude and this happens to, and how much that would suck.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, it's shorthand of Dead Zone, but they just got rid of the like car accident thing. Yeah. And the introductions to the characters are interesting too, because you have Clear, which is just.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. When I realized that was her name, I got very upset. But, they're in the airport and she's reading Tropic of Cancer.
Yep.
So she's smart, but sexy. And then later you talk about these looks. There's all these ominous things of like when he's falling asleep, his, but the night before the trip, his clock radio flashes 180.
Yeah.
His dad says something just really innocuous to him about how you have your whole life ahead of you. And there's this like kind of, he pauses and really thinks about that, and the ominous music plays.
See,
like,
I paused and really thought about that, but it's mainly because I'm reaching middle age, and every time I hear that kind of shit these days, it makes me sad.
You're like, my life, I could have watched this movie 20 years ago.
I did, actually.
they lay it all on pretty thick. But and then when he has this premonition, he's with his friend. There's a couple of attractive young ladies on the plane that his buddy wants to sit next to, and they're trying to work that out. He ends up switching seats with one of them, and then the whole plane crash happens, and he wakes up, and it's right after the two women have asked him to switch seats. So everything from that point on was so basically what happened is a pretty girl talked to him, and he just immediately got covered in sweat and freaked out, which I absolutely respect.
Certainly.
And on that same note, like, give it up for Devon Sawa's bad skin. It's a weird thing, but I made me very happy because he wasn't just like sand blasted into infinity. Mm-hmm. He looked like a teenager. And
right.
Yeah.
I like that. I noticed that too. Now, John, if you were to get on a plane and someone started flipping out like this, saying, I had a vision that this plane is going to go down, what would you do? Would you get off, or would you just be like, would that ignite any sort of anxiety in you?
I think it would, but I think because I hate traveling so much, that I'm probably like, hey, then fine. Yeah. And I don't have to make my connecting flight. That's fine.
Well, also, I mean, I don't think that this is particularly morbid or unusual, but every time I get on a plane, and I'm getting on one in like 3 days, I always have a flash in my mind of like, what if this one goes down? And I think everybody does, you know? And so, well, I think a lot of people do anyway.
Hopefully not the pilots.
I was going to say, if you hadn't before, you will now.
Yeah, be sure to like preface or like to add little addendums to everything that you say so it doesn't become an ironic twist later that when you die in this plane crash.
There you go.
So I don't have to feel bad about it.
I'll text you when I get to LA on Sunday.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Didn't ironically die.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think that because everybody is uncomfortable when they travel, everybody has anxieties about it. I think that everything in this scene actually plays out very well because we can all kind of relate to that. And like, oh God, what if somebody did stand up on a plane and start screaming like, this one isn't going to make it? It would give me pause.
Yeah, certainly. Well, especially because in his dream, because you don't know it's a dream at the beginning, but like the French teacher says in French, like, you know, bon voyage or something, like, here we go. And everyone on the plane starts like clapping and cheering for an extended period of time. And there's one group shot where there's one guy sitting in the middle towards the front that just is not a part of the group. And he is unhappy about this. And I'm like, that's my guy.
Right.
That's me.
You know, it was one of those memes I saw recently. It was just like, you know, he's a 10, but he cheers when the plane lands.
Yeah. But yes, I mean, I say that, but, you know, I have been on planes where there's turbulence and I'm just gripping the seat like anybody else. He starts freaking out about how the plane's going to blow up and causing a scene. And then this asshole jock kid gets up to try to fight him for whatever reason. And then they get kicked off. His buddy Todd leaving doesn't make any sense to me because his buddy Todd has a brother and the brother is like, go see how he's doing. I don't know. I'd be like, man, that sucks for him.
Yeah.
I'll ask him what happened when I get back from Paris.
Yeah. I'll stay on the death plane.
Yeah.
Why couldn't this movie been called Death Plane?
That would have been a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Blood Plane. Something like that.
Yeah. You could watch a triple feature: Blood Plane, Money Plane, Soul Plane.
Right, done.
But then like Sean William Scott's character is just Billy Hitchcock. So many of these characters have names of famous horror directors, which is like Friday the 13th did that. I feel like we're going to encounter stuff like this a lot because he shows up late. He accidentally gets caught up in the struggle and gets pushed out. And it's just kind of funny, like, because this was a pre 9/11 movie to think about. Yeah, having someone that reaction and being like, this plane's going to blow up, and everyone's being like, well, that's kind of annoying what he's doing.
Sure, yeah,
but, yeah. So they get left behind, having caused the scene, and then the plane takes off, and sure enough, it blows up.
They all get interrogated. The people who left the plane. There's like 5 of them or so. These are all our main characters at this point. And he says, you know, Alex says, I just got this feeling. And that's it. So again, no reason. He just knew it.
Yeah. And we get introduced to the two, not really antagonists, but a negative force in this. He's a couple of FBI agents. Daniel Roebuck from Ravager is showing up again.
Oh,
he's Agent Wynn.
Got it. Okay. I didn't pick that
Daniel Roebuck. And the other guy, Roger Guenver Smith, if I'm saying that name right, he's Agent Shrek.
Oh, gosh.
Now, as I said, mentioned after famous horror things, Max Shrek, Nosferatu, but it's hard to hear a guy being named Agent Shrek and not just crack a smile about that. Yeah,
Mike Myers. Yeah, this is Agent Donkey.
And that guy he's been in a few, I mean, among other things, a couple of Spike Lee joints. He's one of my least favorite parts of Do the Right Thing. He's the guy with the photo of Martin Luther King, and he's basically like I Am Sam, but with a photo.
Yeah,
I don't like that guy. But I like him in this. They start interrogating people, and families show up, except for Clear's family. Clear has no family.
Clear has no family. Yeah. they start, they all kind of hang out, just kind of knowing everyone is dead. And again, like, I know it's a simple thing, but like for whatever reason, it just kind of like, I was like, oh, that works. Like, how strange, like, to just know that, like, there's almost the survivor's guilt idea, I think, which they sort of address a little bit later, I think.
Yeah, and they touch on that a little bit with Kristen Cloak's character, Valerie Luton, Miss Luton. She is actually the wife of Glenn Morgan, who wrote the screenplay. But I really like her character in this. So she was one of the teachers, and initially the teacher who spoke the most French got kicked off the plane. Mm-hmm. She was like, I think maybe like she left, but then he's like, no, I'll stay behind. She's like, no, you know French. So she tells him to get back on the plane.
Oh, right.
And she feels tremendous guilt about that. Mm-hmm. And eventually, like, after this, wants to move away. But I thought she played that really well.
Yeah.
Like her guilt and feeling confused about that. Although later the movie itself says that there were 4 teachers on the plane, but in that scene she tells the guard that it's just her and the other guy.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter really. But
you call that an IMDb goof?
I would call that a goof.
That's a goof.
0 out of 7 people are interested in that goof. Right. There's on the goofs page there is a note someone left that's like, every destination is final. Yeah. And 0 out of 7 people found that helpful. And I made it 8. I made it a clear 8. Nice. It was not helpful. But so she's, really bummed out about that. Mm-hmm. And they don't, because she's not a teen, they don't spend a ton of time with her. But I liked that element of it.
Mm-hmm. There's a big funeral scene where they unveil an eagle statue with some very like 90s alt rock acoustic guitar in the background.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a weird moment where at the beginning when you're in his room and he's got like a poster of John Waters' Pecker.
Oh yes.
Movie. And the next to that's like a Goo Goo Dolls. I'm like, who had a Goo Goo Dolls poster in their room? Like, that just seemed like that, like there was a U2 got in trouble for like their album came loaded with your iPhone or something like that. Or was in your iTunes. Yeah. That's how I assumed how everyone heard the Goo Goo Dolls. It's just like
it just appeared.
You owned that CD for some reason. You just had it.
Yeah, it appeared fully formed in your teenage bedroom. Mm-hmm. Carter confronts Alex and he says,
"Listen, don't you ever fucking tell me what to do, all right? I control my life, not you."
Carter!
I'm never gonna die.
Like, just having that teen hubris is pretty awesome.
Well, what I love is that character, Carter, and his girlfriend Terry, they can't not touch each other. There's one of those couples, and so when they're walking up to put a flower on a grave, basically, like she's walking from him, he's got his arms around her. And
even at a funeral.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's also like, I know that would happen.
Yeah,
I knew couples like that.
Totally.
Yeah, and then when he's just like I will never die.
Right.
It's like you're waiting. You're like, okay, he's gonna die in the next 5 seconds, right? No.
Exactly. Yeah. I do like the other kids coming up and asking Alex for advice. It's at that point, like I can't remember what he says back to them, but like that's kind of a funny other side of this terrible burden.
Yeah, Sean William Scott is like, and I did not like Sean William Scott at the time that this movie came out. I never saw any of the American Pie movies or anything like that, but I just knew that face, it's irritating and whatever.
Same.
And then years later, I have this weird affection for Southland Tales. Mm-hmm. Ever since then, I've been a fan of his. Yeah. And so like seeing this, I'm like, oh yeah, Sean William Scott. And he's a dope. Like he's just like this like sad puppy. And because he starts asking Alex about like,
when I was done with the test, the guy that drives with you, during the test. Right. Yeah. Well, anyways, he goes, young man, you're going to die at a very young age. Yeah. Is that true?
Not now, not here, not ever, Billy.
I asked how Cynthia Pastor. Will she say no?
Just no comprehension for the moment that's happening right now.
At a funeral, still.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got to kick it up because it's not played too broadly. It's still just, it fits nicely. Like tonally, it doesn't seem like this completely out of place thing. It just seems like this character's an idiot.
Not conscious of their surroundings, these teens.
Yeah. Just no tact whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But then I also like, because he has a moment with his friend Todd where he's like, hey, because it's the year 2000, he has to be like, I don't want this to sound weird, but I really miss you. Yeah. It's like, look, we're not gay. Right. Don't even think that. And we're not going to think that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, no, man, I miss you too. And I don't want to sound gay either, but I got to go read this poem. Sure. Yeah. But no, and then he gives a speech about how sad it is that everyone dies. Again, I like it's a way to bring some gravitas to the movie without it being like, Yeah, it's a teen writing it, so it can be a little bit corny and it doesn't feel so stupid.
Totally, yeah.
And I'm surprised that because that this is the best friend character, that what happens next?
Yeah, he goes out quick, right? So
yeah,
we cut to the inside of Todd's house, and he's doing some teenage maintenance, shaving, and
it's the worst Who song.
Right. Sitting on a toilet, and he's shaving, and he sees a disturbance in the mirror behind him. So this is kind of how they do a personification of death in these movies. A little shimmer, a little shadow. And, you know, I'll be interested to see if that shifts over the period or over the course of 5 films, because it's kind of neat, but it's a little underwhelming until you start to see stuff happen, I suppose.
What starts to happen is really a great exercise in suspense in that this is possibly the most brutal kill.
Yeah.
I think more stuff happens to Miss Luton, but this one's rough because you start seeing that liquid is flowing out of the toilet, like a drop from where the water valve is. And then it just starts like spreading across the floor. And he goes and reaches for nose hair clippers.
Yes.
And I am losing my mind watching this. Like, I am cringing in my seat. Because even though I've seen them, like, I don't really remember what had happened. Because it's like, I can imagine just like poking yourself like that. That sounds awful. Yeah. Because it's a very like, it's household objects around you. So it's like, I can, I don't know what it's like to be shot with a laser from space, but I know what getting poked seems like messing with your nose. Oh, man, that sounds awful. But he doesn't. He gets away, it puts that down. So that's safe. And then he slips and falls and chokes himself on the
like a clothesline.
It's a clothesline in the tub, and it wraps around him, and it spends a long time, and it's like spills shampoo in the tub, so he can't get footing to stand back up. His eyes are turning bloodshot red from the choking as he like struggles to try to reach for those nose clippers. It was really uncomfortable to watch.
Yes,
but it was. I mean, it's good. It was effective.
Right.
They took him out hard
and quick. And you know what? I'm just thinking about this, but we kind of skimmed over it, but in the airplane scene during the vision, isn't Todd the one who he's trying to get Alex, our hero, to not switch places with the girls?
Yes.
And he flashes him a look of and he pantomimes choking himself and then hanging himself. Like, I'm in a stupid situation. Like, I'm hanging myself, man.
Yeah.
That's how he goes out then.
Oh, yeah. And this got me thinking. Really, again, the Ms. Luton death really got me thinking this, but you could do a cut of this movie where you remove the soundtrack and just every time there's an escalation in the death, start playing the Curb Your Enthusiasm thing. It's just all the time it's like clipping and you think it's like rap around that choke.
Yep.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's grim, but it works. It totally works.
Well, I've got one request for our social videos for this week. Todd's out. He's the best friend. Outside, Todd's father confronts Alex.
Didn't you see it? What happened? You caused Todd so much guilt over George staying on the plane. He took his own life.
Yeah, because his brother stayed behind and died, and that really messed him up, according to his dad. Yeah, his dad does not like Alex Browning. So there's no coming back from that. That they are off the Christmas card list.
Certainly. Alex visits the girl. What's her name again?
Clear.
Oh God. Clear.
I wonder if that's like a Scientology thing.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if James Wall is a Scientologist, but. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex visits Clear, and she just understands him outright, which is great.
I've seen enough TV to know that the FBI doesn't investigate teen suicides. They were there last night. That means 1, they still don't have a clue what caused the crash. 2, they haven't ruled out anything, and the fact that 7 people got off the plane is probably weird enough. Not to mention that one of those people had a vision, or whatever, of the plane exploding minutes before it actually did explode is highly suspicious.
First of all, she has that thing where this, and I swear to God, this really only happens with female characters, where it's like, well, we need to give her depth. Guess what? She's an artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I always think of Hellboy, how they turned Liz Sherman into like, she's a photographer.
Oh, I remember that.
That's how you can tell she has a sensitive soul.
Yes.
She takes photos, and it's like, whatever. And so she's not just taking photos. She is welding. She is spot welding shit.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is commenting on some bizarre piece she has. This head with holes in it on a spring, and she's like,
"It's you, not a likeness. It's how you make me feel.
Wobbly and deteriorated?
Wobbly
Like,
and
I don't understand.
holes in my head? Yeah.
Yeah, what am I supposed to take from this? Oh, but she's smart and whatever.
She has feelings. She has emotions.
Yeah. Oh, we skipped over this. I might try to read this and put it back. Because when Todd dies, Alice gets the sense that Todd is going to die because he's reading about the tragedy of what's been going on and been looking at stuff, and then he's like, well, enough of that, time to masturbate.
Yes.
And just pulls out, like, puts down the thing about the thing at school, the function at school of saying goodbye to everyone, the unveiling of the statue, the memoriam. He goes, yeah, no, let's pull out this Hustler, which, I mean, that's a 2000 movie too. Like, let me turn away from my computer to...
Right. Yeah.
And while checking out the Hustler, an owl lands at his window. He throws the Hustler at it, and Evil Fan catches it, chops it up, and a single part of a headline lands on his leg that says Todd. And so, hey, my spank mag said you were going to die. You okay, bro?
How'd you get this inclination? No way. Nothing.
Reading the Bible. But instead of like calling, he just goes over.
Yeah.
And that's where he discovers that he's dead. But she was there too. Clear was also there.
Yes.
And so he goes to her house to confront her about why she was there.
This is where he starts getting the inclination, and he just says, "What if he was the first of us?"
Yeah,
starting to think that there might be a list kept by who, I don't know.
But then she's like, "Well, let's go look at his body. Let's make sure this is maybe it just ends with him. We'll see if this was an accident or he really killed himself." They sneak into a mortuary, which if Phantasm learn anything from Phantasm, don't do that.
Yeah,
and it's also like they try to give her some depth to, like, I'm also the bad girl. I like doing things that might get me in trouble, even though that doesn't really come up later. I mean, I guess it might explain why she's like helping cover for him with the cops, but you didn't really need that to do that. But so they go in and they find Todd's body, and but who else is there? Tony Todd.
Yes,
always love to see that guy, and he's apparently the mortician. But I would love to see, like, if he is indeed, as the movie's progressive, he is indeed like a force of evil himself. I would love to see a buddy cop movie, just dueling evil morticians, him and the tall man.
Yes, absolutely.
Fast and the Furious thing, where like they're maybe at opposite sides, and they come together and think it's all about family. All the little lurkers with torn off sleeves on their Jawa robes with monster tattoos,
driving kudas like really fast, and
little Shriner cars for the lurker.
Oh, and they jump and spin.
Yeah, pulling heists, killing kids. It's great.
What I love about this scene too is, I mean, Tony Todd gives a lot of like lore dump.
Yeah,
and he just says
every single move we make, from the mundane to the monumental, the red light that we stop at or run, the people we have sex with or won't with us, the airplanes that we ride or walk out of. It's all part of death's sadistic design, leading to the grave.
I do love the fact that these kids are just listening to ostensibly just the mortician guy.
Yeah.
But because Tony Todd has such presence, you're like, oh, he's right. There is a rift in death's design. He's just some dude. Really, that's just how he's portrayed.
Yeah, he totally had this speech loaded. He's been waiting to use this. But it's just his coworkers keep coming in like, not now, Steve. Like, we know.
Death's design,
But it's, I mean, and because he also like drops some knowledge that he knows who these people are too. But again, if it's Tony Todd, I'm like, obviously you would know that. You are otherworldly and beyond me.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I do like that because it adds this uncanny sense of dread. But it's also like he's not doing it. It's not like, and I'm coming for you. You know, it's not even trying to set that up. It's more just like this avatar of death in the form of this fake mortician is letting you know what's really going on.
Yeah.
And not like,
how does he know this? I don't know.
Like, hey, please don't break into my place of work. It's just like,
hey, I'm working here. Yeah.
Just imagining some guy in an A-frame shirt, like rolling out pizza dough, and there's corpses nearby. Like, hey, Papa John's Pizzeria and Mortuary.
So now they're having coffee and talking about death omens. This whole sequence just made me think of Death from the Sandman.
Yeah.
It was just because I've been rewatching that lately. And there is a Nine Inch Nails song called Into the Void playing. that literally has the lyric Final Destination.
Yeah, which I don't believe for a second that character's listening to Nine Inch Nails. He's a Limp Bizkit man. Like that's
yes, right.
But this is a great convergence of these characters in this scene because Alex is talking to Clear about starting to have this theory about death, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like you can form these weird connections out of anything. Then we see Sean William Scott character Hitchcock ride up on a bike, and Carter almost hits him with his car, almost causes an accident there, pulls up. Him and Terry get out of the car, and then Miss Luton was at that same cafe getting it seems like a small town, but then they all just happen to be there. And this is one of the first ones that they shot, actually. But Carter's trying to pick fights again, and Terry, his girlfriend, is finally like, I've had it.
I will not let this plane crash be the most important thing in my life! God! I'm moving on, Carter. And if you want to waste your life beating the shit out of Alex every time you see him, then you can just drop fucking dead.
She immediately gets hit by a bus.
Yeah.
They bothered to, and I was actually frame by framing it. They just didn't do a thing where like a Texas switch or something where it's just the bus. Yep. You see the body collapse a bit and there's fake gore that gets spooshed out. It's fantastic. They elevated it for the horror thing, and I loved it. It was a great gag. And yes, they filmed hers first, one of the early ones, because this is simple. We can just knock this out. Yeah,
and evidently when they were in test screenings and they showed that sequence, it got such an incredible reaction and this is a common editing thing, especially in comedy, where after a particular gag, you next cut to something that's a little bit like, that there's going to be reaction or laughter, or you don't put important information and dialogue right after. But they had to so elongate the next couple of sequences that follow right after that because people were just so shocked and murmuring and talking about the bus hit. So effective.
You could get into the fucking nitpicky shit of like, how did they not hear the bus coming, whatever. Don't care. It rules.
Whatever.
It's a great gag, and it knows it's a gag, and that's fine.
Cut to Alex watching TV, and he gets an idea about the plane explosion, and he sees the line stretching across of the ordering of people dying. He makes a little diagram.
Yeah, because it was the news part. And it's using footage of an actual plane crash that also involved a group of students going to Paris. They said for this movie, they said that the problem was had to do with a fuel line that was burst and caused several small explosions, and the paths of the explosions coincided to where people were, or at least they would have died in that order. He starts figuring out that death is coming for them in this order to make things right. It's a pretty base thing to point out, but I have to admire that death isn't just aneurysm, boom. 4:30 on a Friday death. It's weird. This is the weird Baroque death that it's this whole movie is artists and critics and haters trying to stop an artist from doing his art. Is I will show you. Sure. I'll do it even harder at you. It gets ridiculous. And for as quick as Terry's death is, and as I like that, I do like that the rest of them are pretty ridiculous. But I also have to imagine that as a filmmaker, when you're watching this, that the biggest reaction is from the quick and easy death that you're like, fuck, I just wasted my time.
We spent so much time on the other ones.
But I think part of the reason that works is the counterpoint to the other ones being so ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's figured out that Miss Luton is supposed to be next, and so he goes to her house and is poking around her car because I don't know what makes him think it's going to be a car accident or something, but he's checking her car, and the FBI has been watching him because it's not just that they don't think necessarily that he's blown up the plane, but something's going on here because he keeps showing up at these scenes. What's going on with this guy? They think maybe he's up to something.
Yeah, and he does manage to squeak out the line.
You guys can sit there in your little chairs and make fun of me. Whatever, it's fine. But I saved 6 lives on that plane.
And I'm like, yeah, good point.
Touché.
Solid, dude. Yeah. You are correct. So back at her place, Luton, she pours some vodka. And then I do love this effect. It's so kind of cheeseball, but just a crack in the mug just appears.
Yeah.
Just kind of out of nowhere. And you start getting the low horns in the soundtrack a little bit. The vodka drips out of the cup onto her computer, and it blows up, her computer blows up, and shards hit her in the throat. Right. So it's I have had evenings where I have enjoyed a little whiskey while sitting with my laptop, and I don't think I'll be doing that anymore now that I know that if you drop alcohol into a computer, it explodes and goes into your neck.
It automatically does that. Yeah, like this movie is written by, like, I worry about these guys because they seem very like. A friend of mine once told me a story of he had one of those bathtub shower combos growing up that had like the sliding glass door on it.
Oh yeah.
And his mom would always say, like, well, be careful getting out of the tub because if you fall, you'll cut your balls off on the shower. So he's like, that scarred me for life. But like everything is cutting these guys' balls off. Everything they look at is like, how can this kill me? And that can't be good for you. I mean, that's a little bit, like, I mean, as a anxiety sufferer, that is certainly like, usually it just ends with humiliation or someone mad at me. But, it's like, what if everything was going to kill me? And
this could be death, John.
Absolutely.
Like,
everything.
literally death. Yeah.
Which we started thinking about that later in the movie when he's trying to protect himself. You're like, well, that could still kill you. That could still kill you. That's like, that should, I'm not going to stop and thinking like that. That's not helpful. But this movie, this is a point that plays throughout the movie. There's the John Denver song.
Oh, yes.
This movie hates John Denver because, like, there's this part where the John Denver song comes in and, he died in a plane crash. And so that's the tie to that. But it keeps coming up throughout the movie. And it plays in Miss Luton's house before all this stuff starts happening. Because, she gets stabbed in the neck. And then while she's trying to stop that, sparkling computers start the whole thing on fire. She slips on her own blood, basically. And then is trying to reach for a rag. The rag's on some knives. Like every time I'm just singing that song. But then it falls and it stabs her. And then I don't know what porno mag he threw at a fan this time, but Alex has another sense to show up. And the blocking in the scene is ridiculous because he bursts into the house and he's facing this wall. He's clearly looking at a wall and he's like, Miss Luton. And then he slowly turns around like, look at the you saw there was a wall going into it, but you're like, I better make sure she's not on this wall. I mean, it makes a dramatic turn, but it was just kind of silly to watch happen. And then sure enough, he leaves a footprint and he pulls the knife out of her chest for some reason. Just a bad idea. Not thinking things through, Alex.
There are a few things that frustrate me in movie writing more than like false accusations because like we as the audience know, and I don't find that entertaining in the least. So as soon as he picked that up, I was just like, oh, movie, don't go down this path, please.
You're looking over your glass at a movie.
How
dare
not
you?
now.
You know better than this. We've talked about this movie.
Yes. You know my preferences. So I don't know if you personally have ever been in that situation where you pull a knife out of a body and you're like, oh God, you know to wipe your prints off.
You just leave it in there. Just don't bother. Like, you shouldn't be using your own knives anyway. I mean, this is amateur hour stuff. I wrote several IMDb goofs about this.
Yes.
There was one later about the train accident later. Someone's like, well, it's actually policy for the trains to stop. You are a boring nerd. Shut up.
Right.
No one cares.
He makes it out of the house and then the house explodes.
Yes. Why wouldn't it?
I mean, I didn't rewind. I should have rewound. I can't remember if they were showing other things happening in there that were leading up to the house exploding.
It's kind of like when a car is on fire in a movie, it's always just going to blow up.
Yeah.
It's just
going to blow up.
Reggie snuck in and put out the pilot lights on the stoves, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, but the house just blows up. And of course, Sean William Scott is outside for some reason. He just happens to be riding by on his bike. And I do like though that this movie. The deaths in this movie are generally so much more like coincidence based, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like that it's not all Twilight Zone ironic deaths. It's not like, that Clear loves, welding and so she dies welding, or she dies by something metal breaking apart. So, something stupid like that. But it's all just like, no, we're just going to create these giant, Rube Goldberg machines of death and let them play out because that's kind of fun. Now that may change as things go on because already as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, how do you escalate this?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm both excited and mortified at how they're going to do it. But
Oh, certainly. Weight room. Let me tell you.
I'm on board. I've seen Death Spa. I'm excited to see what they do with that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The friends all get together at this point and they argue over who is next. And somebody does say, is it harder to know? We're all on the same list, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, they're all like forming a unit now because Clear has called them all together, and so like, look, Alex has called this stuff. I'm buying it. If you want to, a quote unquote unbiased third party, and so they start to then freak out about who's going to be next. Yeah, because he knew that Luton was next. So which one of them is going to be next?
And so of course Carter just has to be an annoying jerk, and he just starts speeding around, putting them all at risk, running lights, and he literally just stops on some train tracks. And like, I guess he's just supposed to be testing the theory out. Does he not believe Alex? I kind of don't understand what he's going for.
I do think this scene is a bit clumsy, particularly with like the seatbelt reveal and all that stuff. But like, so basically, he's supposed to be trying to take control of his own life. And I do like that. We talked about it a little already, but how these giant existential crises, they've really sort of honed down to this sort of like, you're either in control or you're not. And that's Carter's thing. Is he's like, no, I'm not letting death push me around. I'll be in control of my own life. Then they all get out of the car and they're screaming at him. And he's like, no, it's not my time. And the car won't start. His car won't start. And so Alex, having had a premonition of a seatbelt breaking, goes and tries to pull him out of the car. In the last minute, his seatbelt breaks, so he's able to get him out. Which, how he put that together, that was like one of the biggest jumps I made in the movie. Is like, how did you figure out that? Because wouldn't the seatbelt break if the thing got hit by the train, whatever. And this is a great moment because the car is destroyed. They've all survived, and Sean William Scott character is just screaming at Carter.
You're next, Carter! I'm staying the fuck away from you! Shut up, Billy!
Billy, we don't need this shit right now.
I don't need it ever! What are you doing? Get away from me next! Fucking Billy, I'm not dead! Oh, you will be! You're dead!
Meanwhile, again, this building of tension, a shard of the car is on the tracks, this piece of sheet metal. Yes. And it keeps shaking, and then this chain or something hanging out from the train just kicks it up. And I appreciate that they didn't just decapitate Sean William Scott. They went like just below the nose. Yes. And kind of up. Just a brutal zombie killing. It's like, it's just gross enough. It could have been like way gorier, but it's Luton's death was bloody, but this was like pretty nasty.
This one was like more dismembering. Yeah. A little bit more than you kind of expect for the polish that's on this film. So I appreciate it for that.
Definitely more raw. I absolutely did not expect that.
So Alex is eating now. He's eating like cat food. Is that right?
Well, because so he after this, he's like, I can't go home. They're going to be looking for me because my fingerprints are on the knife. They think I did something. Clear is like, hey, I got this my dad's old cabin. You can stay at. So she hides him out there. I can't remember if this speech is before or after the train track thing. I think it's before because Alex is already hiding out, and she has a conversation with him like on the beach about the beach of this lake about how she's already experienced death in that like her dad was killed by a gunman in a botched robbery when he left to get cigarettes, and she has this line about,
I have thought a lot about that somewhere, Alex. It exists, that place where my dad is still safe. We had a full pack of cigarettes that night and just kept driving.
So you dreamed your dad just abandoned you instead of dying? That's what a great dream. Yeah, but anyway, it has this whole speech. That's why her parents aren't around and all this stuff. So I know what it's like to fear death. And there was supposed to be this whole like love story between them that they got rid of. And frankly, I'm glad they did. Like they have enough of a connection there that it's pretty implied. But I like that they didn't tie a bow on it. It just makes it more like anyone could still go. It doesn't seem like, like, oh, well, they're going to make it out together because they're both in love. But so he's hanging out at the cabin and he is trying to death proof. Yes. Putting ropes over shelves so stuff doesn't fall over on him. He's eating tins of food, which already I'm like, well, botulism, poisoned food, whatever. But that's not really this death's thing.
That's not death style. Yeah.
That's old death. This is new death. This is hip death. But yeah, he's got a Coleman lantern, like a gas lantern on top of upside down pan and a thing of ice water just in case it tips over. He's wearing gloves to eat all this stuff. And then, but sure enough, something still happens. Of course. But he catches it right before it was going to, what is it? A fishing pole like falls over, and I mean, it's another machinations, just things happening after another, and it almost stabs him in the face. But he's like, I will never die. He said, well, maybe eventually I will, but not right now.
Yeah, right.
Because he's starting to figure out that they can stop the pattern. They can cheat the pattern, because if they can figure out who's next, I forget what his reasoning is about, like, because I didn't die here, it skipped me, so they jumped to Luton, so that's why they're, or it was supposed to be Carter, but since I saved Carter, it jumped to Hitchcock, so that's why Hitchcock died. So look, we can fix this. All we have to do is just prevent the death, and then it will stop. It will leave you alone. Yeah. Apparently.
Right.
Or so he thinks.
Right.
Again,
I mean,
all of this stemmed from he threw a hustler at a fan. That's forget the plane crash. That's the inciting incident.
That's more premonitions based on Hustler.
Yeah, this is what happens if you destroy pornography. That is that is the takeaway of this movie.
So now we're back to the FBI is trying to track Alex down. Clear is like running through like a section of like clotheslines and stuff, and like I just kept thinking like, oh, she's gonna get like sucked up into one or like tangled up into one or something like that. And then eventually like electricity and like electrical wires start like flopping around in like water out of the pool, and like we're starting to get like another big like Rube Goldberg type of situation here.
And like this one though is really all sound and fury. Like it's not as exciting, like, because this is like kind of the big climactic thing, because he's figured out that it's going to be clear. The way he was sitting, he forgot that he didn't switch his seats. So, oh my God.
Forgot about that,
Clear is supposed to be next. And there's just like this down power line that's causing all kinds of havoc. Might electrocute her dog, and then it's the storm that's happening that down the power line is causing the clothesline to spin and then like hit her above ground pool, which causes that to, so she might get electrocuted, but she's avoiding all that. It's like it's all harrowing stuff, but it doesn't feel as big as I think it wants to. Yeah, it's trying to,
and it's funny too, because you obviously know what they're going for, but it's a little less exciting and a little less like personal and immediate as like a piece of metal decapitating somebody or like knives going into it. It's just too broad.
Yeah,
I think
it doesn't seem as like accidental. Or something, it seems like, well, we figured out we're actually finding this, so let's try to have it be a little bit more malevolent, or at least more present. But it just doesn't seem to fit the same mold as the other accidents. But eventually, like she makes her way into her car, and the thing falls on her car, and she's convinced it's going to electrocute her. And Alex shows up and tries swatting at it with a shovel, which I appreciate. Yeah, man, hit that with metal, that'll get it.
Yes, please.
But then, eventually he figures out like, well, look, if I can get it to skip you, then this will all be over, and tries to basically sacrifice himself for it. But but manages to live. He electrocutes himself a bit, but managed to live. And the cops have shown up too, so they can see like, hey, this kid's all right. We don't have any questions about the murder now. Like Faint Prince,
case solved.
No, we saw a flopping cord. We're fine.
Right. So we cut to 6 months later, and they're on the plane again, headed to Paris. They're just like, now we gotta show that we can go to Paris. This will be good for all of us.
6 months. That's not a lot of time.
No,
and it's also, you can really tell it's a reshoot. Like Devin Sawa's face just looks a little bit fuller, which is more grown up. And then Ali Larder, Clear, in the interim in that 6 months has done thing we all go through, where she has lost her baby hair and her adult hair is coming because she's no longer brunette, she's blonde. It's fine. Like enough time has passed, but you get the sense that just like, okay, well, what projects were you working on that you couldn't dye your hair? Because it just seems it seems a little bit different.
They did test the film, and evidently just like nobody liked the ending, and it was some sort of convoluted idea where they like had sex on the beach earlier in the film. She's pregnant. And the only way to defeat death is to bring life into the world. Yeah, just cause.
Yeah, that's a fucking anime bullshit. Like that is so like that's nonsense.
Yeah, they were smart to completely cut that. So for once, test screenings.
Yeah,
I'm all for them now.
Yeah, because and I like this one too, because they get off the plane and they're at a cafe in Paris, which I'll bet, if you really look at it, probably is very suspiciously like the cafe they were at in America.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they put a beret on the guy working there. But sure enough, there's some asshole playing Rocky Mountain High as a busking because the French love John Denver.
Yep,
they're trying to have a moment where Carl's like, 6 months ago you told us we would all be at this table together. I wouldn't believe you. And then he holds up his glass and he's like, to Terry, and he's like, hey, to Todd, and Claire's like, to all the people we lost. Yeah, I'm talking about the love of my life that died. But yeah, the guy that I didn't talk to in high school, it's a bummer he died too. It's like, I get what you're doing
Totally.
here. But it's like, this guy has a little bit more than just like, man, my French teacher, that's a bummer.
Right.
But whatever.
Yeah.
But then sure enough, I like how he still has the paper on him. He's like, but think about it. And he pulls out, Alex pulls out the...
Still walking around with that schematic.
With the layout of the plane. Then there's a fun little last machination thing that Alex barely survives death, only for Carter to a sign to swing down. It's just about to hit Carter, and then
cut to black. Yeah,
that's a great way to end it. It's so fun because I mean,
certainly.
Well, obviously you can't escape death. You're not going to. But I do like that it's not like heavy handed with that. It's still done in a fun kind of stupid way that like we're all going to die. But let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, all that last bit, reshoot, because originally going sentimental, but yeah, that was much better. That was a good $2 million spent to reshoot the ending of the film.
Yeah, I mean, that's like more than like 3/5 of the Phantasm movies put together. Good God.
Evidently, during the premiere, when they were confident of the ending, the producer that requested it like looked down at the director and it was just like, "See, I told you," because everybody erupted into applause at the end. And the director is just like, "Yep, sometimes the producers are correct."
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it really the whole movie I think threads the needle very nicely of still being like fun, but it's not overly stupid. It's still like it keeps the tone where it needs to be. It's not, I find so many things, I don't know, they try to be, and maybe it's just the mode of filmmaking now. It's like, when it's serious, it is serious. I mean, and they're fighting against the concept of death, but it's given the weight it should in this kind of movie. So I think it does that very well, and keeping it that ending too, where it's just, the ride isn't over. Oh, well, we killed him, but he's back. It's just that you can't escape death.
Going from my memory, I feel like I liked a couple of the sequels better than this first one, but they're very clearly like, I don't want to say it's clumsy, but they're finding their footing with this one, even though I think it's successful. But like you can kind of tell that it's like they're still trying to figure out what their rules are and their tone and stuff like that, even though, like you said, they nail the tone. But I am kind of excited to see the next few. Yeah. After rewatching, because I haven't seen this first one since I think I saw it in the theater.
Well, as I said, like I'm curious because I do like the wild machinations the death has to do in order to kill you. But I can see that also becoming cumbersome or like really played out where it's like, just now like the tension is now just pain. It's not like this is really effective and this heat and this way where it's like I just want him to die. Move on to the next one, please. We'll see. I mean, and it doesn't even have to, for me, I guess, become completely more ridiculous. If you just did more of the same, but just, hey, here's some new. Yeah. Instead of being killed in the bathroom, he's killed in the laundry room. Great. Fantastic.
There you go.
Just walk around your house and find different things and imagine horrible ways you can die by it. I do it all the time. It's great.
I was going to say, be careful tonight, John. After discussing this, I want you to keep a lookout.
Yeah, I am around
your kitchen.
I'm just sanding down all the corners in my kitchen. Right. I'm wearing a helmet everywhere.
Well, let's honor our dead for the people that died in this one. Todd Wagner, played by Chad Donella, strangled to death by a clothesline that he stumbled into. Terry Chaney, played by Amanda Demeter, run over by a bus. Valerie Luton, played by Kristen Cloak, impaled by pieces of computer glass, stabbed by kitchen knife. William Hitchcock, played by Sean William Scott, decapitated by flying piece of metal. Carter Horton, played by Kerr Smith, smashed by a falling billboard.
It's nice that they actually died. They had the temerity to actually die this one, not like Phantasm.
Instead of waking up in a dream or whatever. Yeah. So, having seen this one, now granted, I'm not going to count in the kill count all of the students that died on that damn airplane.
Right.
That's a bit much. We'll go slasher movie style with this, just like the people that died. So barring any future catastrophes in the other Final Destination films, like we're not going to count like the nameless people.
The inciting incidents.
Right. Taking those out, what is your prediction? Your kill count prediction?
I should have thought about this more because you're obviously. I think the body count's going to go up, but like it's not about the amount of kills; it's the kind of kills. So how many went down in this one? Like, I
got five, maybe six.
And there's 5 movies total. Not counting the inciting incidents. I'm gonna go 45.
I was gonna go 42.
All right.
To make it interesting, I'll just go with a good 40.
Okay.
You said 45. Okay, yeah.
And thinking about it that way, it does make me a little bit more interested because, as fun as some of the Jason stuff was with just the slashing or whatever, I like the time spent with it, not necessarily in a torture porn way where we're just watching like the Saw movie, something where we're just watching the character suffer, where all the suffering is just done on our end. Like with him, with Todd in the bathroom, that's all me. That's what the movie is making me do that. Todd's fine until he's very much not fine. But
that's a good point.
I would rather the movie do that to me than like sit around and just watch someone suffer. I'd rather just like have me go like, oh God, that could happen. Because I don't care for Todd, but I still don't want him to die. And so,
sure. These movies are good at just like making your eye flit around the frame looking for the thing that's gonna be the undoing.
There was a thing I was reading in one of the press books for this movie that was like the art director was talking about how like he basically built like 2 different versions of the set.
Wow.
Of sets. And like one of them would be more like he would call it, I believe he called it skewed, where like things wouldn't be necessarily at absolutely right angles. They'd just be kind of off. I'd have to see like side by side comparisons because I didn't catch it. But the idea is to like not have it be this German expressionistic, like whatever, but just to make you feel a little bit unsettled, to make you feel like something was wrong. Maybe the colors were off or something like that. So I'd have to look more into that, but I like that as a concept of a way to, obviously it's expensive to build just copies of sets, but
yes,
but this is a big studio movie, so you can do that. And I think that's another thing too that I'm kind of looking forward to is knowing that they have budgets, like this thing will have a budget of to some degree of like, how's that going to get used? It's not just like, what can we get away with and cover up with our practical effects and whatever. Although, I hope it's not all just like CG stuff, but I think you can get away with doing bigger stunts. And so having set this up, it's probably just going to get even bigger. And so I'm kind of stoked for that.
So we got 4 more.
Yeah.
Just like Phantasm, there's 5 in the series. So that'll take us through another month. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on the first episode of Final Destination. Hope you liked Phantasm. Hope you liked Friday the 13th. Hope you want to keep watching along with us.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where all these movies can be found. Oh, I got an inexpensive Blu-ray collection on eBay for this, but I'm not sure where these are streaming right
Currently,
now.
They're all streaming on Stars, which is where whenever you want to watch something and it's no longer on the platform you want to watch it on, it's on Stars. And so, because HBO had them for a long time, had all of them.
I remember
and now
that.
they're just on Star. Whatever the rights are, however they work this out, they're all on Stars now. Which you can either...
Damn it, Zaslav.
Yeah. it's a Final Destination movie about... it's just about him destroying HBO and Warner Brothers. So if you want to stream, you can find them there. I'm sure they're available to rent on other platforms as well. But that's just where I found this first one.
Yeah, these are fun. So watch along with us and reach out on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want any say at all in what we might do next, start thinking about it. Because we'll have to decide sooner than we think, actually.
Yeah. And if you like this one, tell us what your favorite awful kill was in it.
Yeah. Chime in. Yeah. Chime in on Instagram or Twitter. Let us know which Rube Goldberg kill was your favorite.
And just how cool Tony Todd is. Just drop that note. Yeah. Particularly if you are Tony Todd. Just be like, hey, by the way, I'm great. You listen to podcast? What podcast?
Yeah, exactly. When people talk about me online, I find them and just chime in
know
that I'm great. All right, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Have a good evening.
This has been a Two Penguins media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and we'll see you next time.